Hey everyone, I'm Reiko from the Azure Global Black Belt team, and this is a supplementary video to kind of walk through trying to fix an error when I tried to deploy MLflow inside Codespaces. This is a supplemental video to that video of MLflow and Codespaces, or GitHub Codespaces, forget the name of the video, I'll link it down below. But this is sort of walking through the process of how to actually fix it. So the short of it, maybe I'll just skip to TLDR of it. The fix is actually to modify your, if I just get out of the way, the Docker file to actually add in to your bashrc an updated path variable. And this path includes the actual local version of Python installed on the system. In my case, in this default dev container Python 3.11 build container, to include the full Python path with all the proper bin locations and stuff like that. This path is actually included in the broken environment. However, the order of it is not correct, I would say, or isn't what we would expect it to be, and it follows the conda environment. And as a result, it generated an error which says that it couldn't link to the libgcc library for the compiler, the C++ compiler. So the easy fix, anyways, having searched other methods, is to simply put in this line after you install your version of conda, in my case Miniconda3, and this will load accordingly. So if you don't care, you just want the fix, that's the simple fix. It's already included in the upstream dev experience GBB organization MLflow Codespaces repo, and it's updated in the Docker file as of today with commit 744564E. So that's it. You can stop watching the video at this point. If you want the longer version, I want to just dive into it. So what happens when you initially or originally would have started that environment is that you would start the MLflow UI. That starts up the server, the tracking server, the artifact server, the model registry server, all that. If I go and actually run a model, so in this case I already ran it just for illustration purposes, in the instructions it would say to run, at least the initial time, MLflow run, and then use the MLflow example repo from the MLflow org, and then it would go through it, install pip, all the dependencies, etc. And eventually it just kind of fails out. And it barfs up this message basically saying the standard C++ library is not available. Like it just can't find it in conda for whatever reason. And this was painful, and I kind of wasn't sure why this was happening because I'd ran it days earlier and it was working, and I presumed it was my conda version had updated, because it did, to Python 3.12 as a default, and got error messages regarding that, even though my system is 3.11. I was kind of pointed to a solution because in my VS Code environment, if I just switch here, I had placed in my bash settings this default argument that runs every time that bash in a Linux terminal starts up. And it's to add in basically this login shell parameter to when I remote into bash from into a Linux box with bash. This was a result of originally, because this is saved and persisted amongst my sessions or my VS Code instances, a workaround or a solution to some other issue I had with WSL2 on my Windows machine, which allowed me to properly load environment variables there as well. I don't remember the exact problem, but same thing. So this kind of indicated that this was the issue, because if I were to load or connect to my Codespaces via VS Code desktop as opposed to the web browser experience, this automatically, by connecting to Codespaces, would load that login shell. And as a result, the path, if you can see here, I believe it's up to here, includes all the default Python utils, Python itself, the binary for Python, that is installed on a local machine. And then, a little further on, it includes what conda adds into the path, is the path for conda that's been installed. You'll note that the same path for my local Python is still loaded, so I'm not sure where in all the, .bashrc profile, /etc environment, etc. Well, the order of all that is in terms of shenanigans, but the experience that you get when loading a non-login shell, so basically the experience you get in VS Code, the sort of web version of it in Codespaces, this by default here in the bottom right is a non-login shell. And so as a result of that, if I echo path here, the order of which all this kind of loads conda first and then my system version of Python. Okay, so this is not the desired or the intended load order. Okay, this will cause this error to kind of barf up and cause you some pain. So what you do want is either force a login shell. There you go, got it. By having this as default in your VS Code, but this doesn't help you if you're running in the web version. So the arguably more elegant solution, instead of forcing a login shell and therefore getting the right experience and having your MLflow experiments run appropriately, the actual fix then, if I go back to my browser, is to instead modify your Docker file to have this run each time the .bashrc file is loaded for non-interactive shells. This will send you down a rabbit hole or a review or a relearning of the load order based on your .profile, your .bashrc file, your .bash underscore profile. There's a whole bunch of other files. If you use a different shell, that'll cause some issues. Etc environments, etc profile.d, list goes on and on. But this, to me, is the most elegant, considering out of the box, the experience that we want in the web version, if we spin up Codespaces accordingly, should include that. So just to test and to show, this is loaded with the default non-login shell. If I actually change to a login shell, this should now echo, if I echo path, include the proper, there you go. This first line here where includes the system system Python binary, as opposed to loading the conda one first, which is right here. Okay, so if I were to rerun my experiment, which I have to because it's a new shell technically, re-add the server location, the URI for my server, which is still a local machine, but I still need to add it, the command line, and then rerun the experiment. In this particular case, because the environment is loaded correctly, I've got all the other binaries that were loaded in my conda environment for this particular build. It goes, and all of my experiments, if I go to ports and I load the browser, I go to my MLflow UI, you notice that first one I ran, which was in a non-login shell. It's interactive, but it's not a login bash shell. It failed miserably because it couldn't link to that C++ library. This second attempt, which happened 19 seconds ago or more, which was a login shell, which had the correct order in my path variable to my Python binary, this went fine. So keep that in mind. If you ever run into that, you see that error, it's likely a path variable issue. Hat tip to my teammate Diego Casati for staying up late and helping me sanity check and just being a sounding board. But this video is, more or less just a supplementary video to the original MLflow and Codespaces video that we created. But also, it's really more for myself for when I forget again in the future, because I will forget how to actually think about and tracking down resolving this issue. Okay. Before I finish up this video, likely you may be asking, why couldn't you pin a specific version of libgcc or gcc in my conda YAML file? I did experiment with that in my own forked version of the MLflow example, and I've pinned, first of all, I pinned a version of Python just in case that was causing it. I pinned a version of essentially GCC Linux x64. to 11.12, and that didn't do anything at all. The error still came up, and so this, to me, would have been a better, more elegant sort of solution. But alas, it didn't work. So the only recourse I have at this point, unless you good folks have a better way of doing this, and there were Stack Overflow messages about symlinking the headers for that particular library into my conda environment, which is the most unelegant, I think that's a word, solution in my opinion to get that done. I opted not for that. So this is the solution. That'll make it work, and yeah, you should be able to spin up at this point a Codespace environment. If I just go back again to Codespaces, here I'm in my forked version, but you should be able to now create your Codespace. I should go back further. If you go to actual, where was it? I think it's this one. No, that's not it. If you actually go to Codespaces in this repository, you can fork it. That'll work. Create another fork to intentionally create that bad build. But now this repository is fixed. The Docker file is complete, and you can go ahead and spin this up, fork it, create your own pre-build, deploy directly off of it, off Codespaces. Whatever you like to do, it works now. So thanks again for watching, and yeah, good luck. Hope your experience is fantastic. Take care.